Reignite your intuition to grow your intuitive self. This episode is totally about being an introvert. And I have the honor to welcome Susanna Reay as my guest. My name is Angela and I'm your host of the show and a highly intuitive person by birth who never lost her connection. I am the expert in supporting you, regaining your intuition and living a fulfilled and much easier life. Trusting fully your intuition takes time and is a very individual process. I share with you my knowledge and strategies I have developed to support yourself on a daily basis in any situation. If you need support as an introvert to become an entrepreneur, make sure to connect with Susanna. You'll find the link underneath this podcast. Hey Suzanne, welcome to my podcast. I am super happy. Today my guest is Suzanne and I was a guest at her summit and I was absolutely impressed how incredibly she did the whole thing. It was not my first summit, but it was feeling like sitting on a couch with friends and listening and watching and being nurtured. And she has this ability and I just love her the way she is. She's a very authentic, heartwarming person. Please, Suzanne, introduce yourself to us because I'm just overwhelmed how great it is to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Angela. It is a pleasure to be here as well. And yes, my name is Susanna Reay. And I'm a visibility coach for female intrapreneurs. Now, probably if you're listening, you're going, what's an intrapreneur? And this is an entrepreneur who is introverted in nature. And this is how Angela and I connected, because it's been my mission, my passion to really get out there in the world how, as an introvert in business, you need slightly different ways of going about your business so you maintain your energies and you stay very sustainable in your practices. So that's what I do and I work, and the summit was all called the Introverts Powerhouse, which is now over. That was run in January. But you can also still access those talks. I do have a membership site where I let people come in and they can rewatch. You can listen to Angela's talk as well within that. So, yeah, that's kind of, and I guess obviously, I guess I ought to say I'm an introvert, I'm an entrepreneur, and that's how it all came about. And my background is very much in design and marketing. I'm an artist as well. I have an MBA, I've got business studies, and I've realized with the culmination of all these things, how important it is for us to find the way that suits us the best when we're working in business, particularly if you're working on your own, is even more important because you can't fall back so much on a team around you, which you might be able to do more in an office.
I love that one, especially because I think in the office you can hide as an introvert a little bit. I called myself for a very long time an introvert pretending to be an extrovert. There is not much choice. We kind of have to sell, but it's hard. I tried like the classical launching and I was always like, not mine. And it took me really a long time until I was like, okay, now I know how I sell. I just don't like the classical selling. I am an introvert and I like to be an introvert. People who know me since many years were quite astonished, like, what the hell changed? And I was just like, I don't hide it anymore. I just live it.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. People would say, but you're extroverted, aren't you? And I guess that's something we should point out right now, is just because you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you're shy. It doesn't mean you're socially awkward. You can be just as sociable and love meeting and connecting with people like we are now. But what it means is your energy really gets restored when you're on your own. So if you're in a big room with lots and lots of people, you'll be feeling tired really rapidly. So big networking events, conferences, they're not designed for the introvert in mind at all. And that's really where, even within my own programs, that I have my Golden Visibility membership portal. And again, it's aimed at my clients that they can start this program whenever they want and it can go through and they can work through the lessons in their own time, and they do have access to me. But I find many courses that you sign up to online, they're like 6 weeks and you've got to get it all done. And as an introvert, we deep dive into material. We're fantastic students. We want to do the best at what we know, but therefore we might spend far too long in terms of research and not putting it into action. So it takes us a bit longer when we're involved in these intensive programs. We kind of feel that there's no time for the implementation. And I didn't want that to happen. And that's why I realised this from being in these programs myself. And I'm sure Angela is also, she's nodding. You can't see it's a podcast, but she's nodding along. And she's going, yes, I've been there, because you just know, and you sort of suffer from shiny object syndrome as well, that you go, oh, but maybe I need to learn this next because I'm not quite good enough to do what I want to do yet, because introverts tend to be perfectionists as well. So there's quite a few things that I've learned as an introvert myself that there's some negative aspects, but there's some really powerful positive aspects of being an introvert as well. And that is, you have a superpower of your listening abilities. You're great learners, and you're normally really empathetic as well, and you can really get what other people want. So you have an awful lot to give in the workplace, but you do have a tendency to hide. And that's where I come in and help, because I'll believe in you before you fully believe in yourself to get out there and share your message.
Oh, I love it. And how come, I mean, you just said, I mean, you're super smart. You studied several things, you learned a lot. I'm like, whoa. I'm just a normal person. How come that you all of a sudden decided, okay, I'd love to support people who are like me? I mean, was there some like light bulb moment, as I call it, when something's like bing coming up and you see it? Or is it like you just grew into this and it became your mission or passion or both, or actually, yeah?
I think basically it's grown with time. I've always had a passion and an interest for psychology as well, with how the brain works. And I studied that early on in early days, and how the mind works and personality types and how that affects how we interact with people and connect. And I've moved around a lot. I've lived in lots of different countries around the world. I think I tallied, it's like 20 cities over 3 continents in sort of 30 years, basically. And I realized every time you come into a new culture, you're very good at watching. Well, as an introvert, I'm very good at watching and listening and learning and seeing those differences and how they interact. And I came back to the UK. I am British and I live here now, but only 3 years ago, I returned to England. And at that point, I got really struck by very much still the sort of 9-to-5 rat race workplace and how everyone was going off there. And I remember walking down the street thinking, I know, I'll go and get a job within a marketing agency. I've done a lot of design and marketing throughout my years, though a lot of it's been freelance. But I thought maybe that would be good for me, because I'll connect to new people in this new area, start again. But my heart, I walked past this window and it was one of those open plan offices, just, you know, computers. And my heart dropped through the floor. I just went, I can't ever do that. And then it made me think, why did I have such a strong emotional reaction? And it was in the evening, so the office was even empty. There weren't even people sat at these desks. And I was just like, I can't ever imagine myself being happy in that occasion, in that scenario, to really be the most productive and efficient in my work. Because at the core of it, as an introvert, I like working in the quiet, on my own, very focused. I love working on my own from home and being in control of my flexible timetable, being able to be there for my children when I want to be, not reporting to anyone else. And I realized that the actual space and the office space and the environment was really a sort of trigger point that wanted me to connect more. And I've always been an artist and a designer. And I realized as well, I knew lots of artists who didn't really know how to get themselves out there. And so a lot of my initial clients were in fact painters and other varieties of artists, voice artists in all senses, where they have such an amazing talent, yet they didn't know how to get out there. So I realized actually that binding thread between us all was in fact that we were introverted in nature. We had a lot to give, but we didn't want to go about it the normal way. So I started distilling and defining and really reviewing all those techniques out there, which the big coaches you hear and talk about. And most of those big coaches are extremely extrovert in nature. So the philosophies they give us, yes, they work. But if you're introverted, you would need a team of 10 people around you to work at the same speed as the extrovert. But that doesn't mean an introvert still can't build their business and be very successful. You've just got to be aware you're not going to go into overwhelm and burn yourself out along the way. So it was this sort of combination of different things that all came together at one point that made me, I guess, really niche down and focus on female entrepreneurs. And the other question, I'll probably preempt you here, Angela, is why female?
Well, I was curious what happened after the artists. What was the shift, because I think very often people think artists are extroverts, but I think there is a few artists that are very extroverts and we hear about them and see them and whatever, and all the others are very quiet. Artists are very often introverts, but we think they're extroverts. So I was curious how you came from the artists to the female entrepreneurs, and
well, an artist,
I go that way.
Yeah, an artist really is. Many artists are women for a start because they tend to get more into the creative fields. The creative fields are dominated by women, but a lot of the people up top and out there are men who are perhaps a bit more extroverted in nature. But if you're an artist and you're working on your own in your studio, you are an entrepreneur. You've set up your own business. You're selling your work, but they don't necessarily see themselves as that. They go, I'm an artist, and they don't see that actually to become a selling artist and not a poor artist, they need to actually have the business side as well. And because I love art, I very much believe that arts of all types, whether it's drama, music, and so we're all creative, even in the writing, like authors, it's so important to keep that creativity connected in the world. So for me, it was pulling those people who needed, I saw they needed the extra help, but they also needed someone who understood where they were coming from. And it was that connection because I'm an artist myself, I'm a designer. I know what it feels like and I know the importance of creation and putting that very precious sort of barrier around your creation time and not getting sucked into like, I've got to do my marketing, I've got to do my accounts, but you need to find a balance and a structure. And the reason why I then began to focus on women more is as well is what I'd love to see in my lifetime is gender equality. Basically, in the workplace, there are still way too many male-owned companies out there, and women have everything they need within them. They just need more help pulling it out, basically, and building that confidence. And I have 2 daughters, and I want them, when they come into the workplace, they're now 14 and 11, to say, I can do anything. I can build my own business. I can be successful in what I want to do. And so for me, that was also about being a role model to build them up and be able to say, yes, I can do that. Because, too much. Every week I read something in the news about inequality against women somewhere in the world, and it's still happening. Like this week within the newspapers, I saw there was a Malaysian primary school pamphlet that was showing that it was shame on the girl if she wasn't getting changed in private and or these various other things. So if something happened to her in terms of sexual abuse, it was shame on her, opposed to, come on, let's have a go and re-educate the boys, the men. Let's make them understand it's their responsibility to control their actions. And this is all to do with gender equality, which comes into the workplace. And if you build a business yourself as a woman, that brings you money, money gives you power, which brings you respect. So it's like a huge cycle, but that is my bigger mission behind the visibility. So I have worked and do work with a few great men who have the same vision in their heads. They also want gender equality. But yeah, my real passion is to help the women step up and step out, basically.
What you guys can't see, as it's a podcast, her face is glowing from passion, and I love to watch her and listen. And so if I understand you right, your target clients is nothing else than your big love. Your love to art, your love to your daughters, and you want to change the world with what you do. And this is really what I love about. For example, you're like, okay, you want gender equality, which we honestly don't have to start to discuss because that's nothing to be discussed. It's ridiculous that we're still discussing it in my world. And I love the fact that, this passion, I want to change something in this world. I have this as well. I want to raise consciousness and make it something that's just normal. Like there is nothing that I have to learn to become conscious. I am conscious because that's what we are by nature. And we are equal by nature. So I really loved why you want to work with female entrepreneurs. And I also could hear very clearly, it's not that you don't take men as clients. It's not that you don't support men, but only if they are on the same page, which makes sense. Probably they are happy to find someone like you and be like, yeah, we'd rather work with her who might be quite honest regarding the gender equality, but we know what's going on, instead of going to someone who might be a super famous coach but has no idea how an introvert feels.
Yes, because introverted men need to follow the same introverted techniques as introverted women. As you say, we are actually all equal. We don't need different methods, but there is definitely a masculine way of doing things. And this isn't gender-based. This is sort of how we operate. And there's a more feminine way, and there's different communication styles. And you tend to find some of the really well-known coaches out there. I mean, Gary Vee is quite a strong personality out there at the moment. He is so extroverted. You watch him in an interview and he's fidgeting constantly and he's go, go, go. And it's all hustle this, do that. You've got to turn up. And gosh, I get tired just watching him. And I know there'll be men watching him who don't connect with him at all as well. And that's because his methods don't work for them as introverts. So it's building this awareness and also being proud that actually, yes, I am an introvert, but, I'll be a card-carrying, outward-going, I'm sociable, I'll connect, I love meeting people. It's nothing about being shy. And if you go back, and it was the Myers-Briggs personality test, which really made the introversion-extroversion scale really well known. And that was all based on Carl Jung's work, the psychologist from the 1920s, which is amazing. It's, 2019 as we're recording this. I'm thinking it was 97 years ago when Carl Jung came out with his theory of introversion and extroversion. And still it's not a well-known sort of naming of a personality within the workplace, within the schools. And I've been speaking to various experts who are working equally on female leadership programs so they can honor and own their introversion as well. And there's really interesting things that are now beginning to happen. But I'm thinking, this is 100 years on.
I really like about your example with Gary Vee. I mean, he is an extrovert. I get tired too, like looking at him, because it's just too much. It's like, whoa, it's overwhelming. So the great thing is we finally are able to show not only the extroverts, we're also able to show the introverts. Here is both ways. There is a coach for, Gary Vee is awesome for an extrovert. You are awesome for an introvert. That's just perfect. So the whole thing starts to bloom up, I'd say. How it's possible that everybody gets supported. I teach from time to time, and I used to tell my students I'm an introvert, and they look at me like, you? I'm like, yes, I am an introvert, but I can't be an introvert in front of you. But I'm still not an extroverting teacher who is jumping and up and down and left and right. I'm talking a lot, yes, and I'm giving you a lot of information, but I'm an introvert. And the first time I taught that course, after the third week, one student stepped up to me and was like, I think being an introvert is not that bad, isn't it, miss? And I was like, yay, I did it. Someone was finally like, I don't have to pretend who I'm not.
Yeah, I don't get why people think being an introvert equates to bad. And I guess that's one of the things I'm trying to change, because it's just a lack of understanding of what the term means, really. And as you say, going back to school, when I was at school in my teen years, gosh, I'd come home from school, I'd be super chatty, involved in all the clubs and being in there. I'd come home, I'd sleep for 2 hours before dinner because I was exhausted from that exertion during the day. I wasn't sick. I was just in need of recharging my batteries. And because I'm open about my introversion, my daughters, one of them most definitely is very introverted, and I see the same in her. She comes home from school, and yes, there might be a little bit of chat initially, and then she needs 2 hours on her own, just reading a book or sketching. And because she's also, I'm bringing up 2 artists, it seems, are both very creative as well. And then you give them dinner, and then they've recharged their batteries, and then out flows the conversation. So if you're listening to this, have a think. If you've got family, think of your family members and have a feeling of going, well, what personality are they? And maybe if you're extroverted and you're listening to it, you'll give a little bit longer to let the more introverted people in your family speak. Don't think a silence is a bad thing. A silence means they're thinking lots. A lot is going on internally within their head. And extroverts tend to always speak their reality. And therefore, we always know what's going on in an extrovert's mind because it comes out. Whereas the introvert will be thinking a lot internally. But if you ask the right questions, you will get the answers if you give them the space to talk. So, yes, if you're listening to this, no matter what you're doing, I'd love you just think about your friends, your family around you, and then just take a moment to reflect about who would be introverted, who is extroverted, and how can you help just honour that status. And equally, I know with my extroverted friends that I honour the fact I know they're extroverted. And therefore, if I do want to meet up with them, I might just take a bit more time beforehand to relax and gather my energies. So when I'm within them, I can enjoy their presence, their bubbly personality, the lots of energy. But I probably wouldn't plan to spend a full, day, 3 days or whatever with them because I'd be very tired. So it's about balancing how you want to be.
Well, to be honest, right now, I think that's the perfect end of the podcast. I'm totally in love with what you say, and I'd love people to connect with you. They will find all the connecting links beneath that podcast. I love what you said, and I love to support you further on, and I would love to welcome you back if you have any special program, because I'm pretty sure my listeners love it as well. And I thank you very much for being my guest, Susanna. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Are you ready for reignition? Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? Yes? Then go to angelahack.com, choose podcast, and click on the link to connect to Susanna. Or if you feel like you're chatting with me, click on the link and book a 30-minute free call with me. Thank you for listening to Reignite Your Intuition. If you like my podcast, come back, tell others, share it with friends, make comments, and guess what? I'm looking forward to welcome you again.